All prehistory, history, future, war, and peace are cause and effect chain reactions. Nuclear explosions, bribe-driven tyranny and aggressive wars, and potentially our court decision and your action-ignited love bomb. Our specified reforms, only possible with your continued participation, could keep enhancing justice and peace until great terrible weapons are gone, and every year fewer soldiers brandish weaker weapons. In 100 years, each border might have one 85-year-old sentry every 10 miles, brandishing a papier-mâché club and a squirt gun. Sounds silly? Real reform returns government to you, who should only authorize killing industry, public and private, to steadily reduce production. The only possible way, proves world history, to provide for our common defense. Constitutional government protects us against death, ourselves and them. Contrast this systematic progress, the ascension of love and care we've been discussing, with Ronald Reagan's dream of filling the heavens with hell, his Star Wars scheme to expand the American nuclear empire far into space, training H-bomb triggered X-ray lasers and missile defenses to fry enemy civilians in their beds. Never mind that 100,000 nuclear missiles would be built to overwhelm our video game at 1,000th of the cost and complexity. Now choose your cause and effect plan to achieve the national security dream that is best. But just remember what war work intends and always achieves. Everyone assumes the world designed by the utopian is an impossible pipe dream that powers that be must always be accepted and ceded to. My late father sympathized with my idealism, but reminded me that the real world decides over powerless objectors. You'll notice that my speeches describe our real world of government as an uncontrolled technological aberration that kills us for money, power, and bigotry. Constitutionally redesigned utopia is your only choice for happy, safe development of your family. So you are advised to work for this caring human alternative. My dream of the think tank to inspire and coordinate an effective reform movement is only that, in the hands of weak little me. So you'll notice that piece by piece, I hope to stimulate you to assist in every area that your organization and expertise is way beyond mine. Legal activists all over the world must follow our research to recruit constitutional lawyers, to sue courts, to overturn all laws supporting corruption, thus end running dirty executives and legislators, detailing how judges must direct the first decade of clean elections. Added research on the undue private pressure to destroy public equality and care that every gift dollar causes should persuade courts to mandate public funds only for campaigning until dirty paws are replaced with clean ones, willing to appropriate their own equal time rules and dollars, and start holding themselves to passing constitutional laws for all us decent folks, not just war profiteers and other parasites. Once all industrial and individual gifts to politicians are stopped, much, but not all, conflict of private with public interest abuses of power are stopped. Anytime a legislator, executive, judge, regulator, or military officer makes any government purchasing or action decision in favor of certain private contractors, potentially, no, usually against our larger public interest, it may be instead that every individual and public right and need is being upheld, and critics claiming that private interests are forcing public harm can be proven sometimes flat out wrong. But you do know that governments free to choose private over public interest, contrary to their constitutions, regularly do, which begs the question, so why do you allow this? The favoring of huge donors with humongous paybacks from your children's solvency, deliberate risk to them and you, mate and friends, being entirely beside their point, which is solely to enrich and extend the careers of politicians and their public parasites. Of course, full laws against corruption must be court mandated until the first and subsequent free and fair elections permitting choice among candidates actually intending public service are held, until all of the bribery of quid pro quo payoff mobsters is eliminated. Enforcement must always include full-life financial transaction scrutiny of all government folks and every fat company and cat they ever even winked at. We'll have to stay on top of all money moving above and below the table. Wrist slaps won't even slow down a dozen new cute conspiracies. Only major players doing serious time. I'd like you to listen to another example, a little less horrible than Bill Clinton targeting Chinese missiles closer to his own American constituents for suitcases full of cash. Actually a check, but no less the purely evil payoff. Another true story of potential but deliberate harm to some of the public for private profit. Texas Attorney General and candidate for governor Greg Abbott was accused by his challenger, Wendy White, of being a tad too friendly with Scott and White Hospital, defendant in a bad patient care lawsuit. Abbott had intervened legally to help the poor hospital beat up on the aggrieved patient. For all I know, Abbott could have been right as rain and the patient a lying scam artist. And I also don't know if the Attorney General helped the hospital in his official capacity as top Texas lawyer for the government, or hopped on his bandwagon from his other private legal practice. But candidate White pointed out that the hospital had poured $350,000 into Abbott's campaign kitty, concurrent with the enriched politician showing powerful partiality to his corporate sweetheart. Abbott's only public defense against such damning facts of said sordid soap opera. Wendy White has her own fat cat donors too. Yeah. Listeners, the world over, you're now getting the idea to stop both of these clowns and 100 million others from collecting diddly from any source but their public paycheck. That is, if you'd prefer your leaders to woo you, not do you and screw you. Are you ready for another example of deliberate attacks on public health and government for profit? Monsanto Corporation is the world champ of genetically engineered seeds that farmers must buy paired with powerful pesticides, each the subject of rather ominous research. Our American Food and Drug Administration got busy investigating both those seeds and pesticides in case regulation to protect the public would be needed. So guess who applied for the job of chief of the FDA's Product Safety Division? After the party in power received mucho bucks from his corporate boss, none other than head lawyer for Monsanto. Need you even ask why he wanted that job, how he got it, and what he did with it? On your slowest day, you've already guessed that Monsanto's man, newest fox to guard our chicken coop, promptly announced that any FDA investigation or potential regulation of genetically engineered seeds combined with pesticides would never again even be considered, his scientists so advising him. Journalists later discovered that all but 2 of his scientific investigators insisted that Monsanto's potentially deadly to us products needed much examination and potential regulation. So the slippery shyster had more than deceptively termed the minority or complacent pair as my scientists, supporting his real Monsanto boss's green light. My future think tank will collect 10,000 stories with the exact same plot and characters from almost every nation on earth. Government watchdogs turned lapdogs. My reform law would bar anyone from taking a job as a government regulator if they ever worked for a company that could be controlled by that agency, and any regulator from ever working for any company potentially affected by work he or she did in that government job. Legislators and executives would also be prohibited from any action to scarf our money for any company they ever worked for in the past, and could never, for the rest of their lives, ever collect a personal dollar for any future job for any outfit they even tried to award public money to, or special government tax or regulatory breaks for during their time pretending to be public servants. Any less corruption blocking, and the party always negatively affected, you might as well turn on the stove and jump in the gravy. 'Cause when they get through eating your lunch, you are lunch. Talk about your hunting instinct. Kicks in with the ill-advised, unhealthy, uncontrolled opportunity. Forever his story. Companies that give bundles to bundles of legislators, probably both parties, and more to the fundraiser-in-chief, don't have to personally send in their own company employee or pay off agencies directly. Beholden executives, senators, congressmen, and staff let agency directors know that certain companies have well-researched concerns and we are evaluating your agency budget and salary increases, and that certain agency positions could be filled by certain people so knowledgeable about certain industries. Hint, hint, hire our benefactors. Hint, hint. So long as we allow bribes, contributions, the number and specificity and complexity of laws needed to stop company, legislator, executive, regulator, back-scratching conspiracies is staggering. So just halt all the payoffs and rewards, so certain with the gift system, leaving the incumbents' remaining motivation an excellent salary for their very best public service effort. to hopefully attract a plurality of votes in competition with even the more eloquent critics and attractive challengers. Now, Pauls, limited to equal campaign time, must fight to provide superior service and ideas. In a clean, just government, rolling in bed with fat cats won't get you rolling in extra dough or TV time, but will get your butt publicly kicked back to that used car lot gig. And the public-private conflict of interest, job-hopping blocks, or revolving door ban I've described, and evil shenanigans and scams become extremely difficult, long as we look hard for dirty money movement and slam the perps with fines and terms big enough to scare the others straight. Any government corruption ban is incomplete without keeping military officers out of the weapons business for life, or else on active duty they may promote and use unnecessary and sometimes defective weapons to expand and extend wars and endanger their own troops, because they may well be already beholden to their future arms merchant employers. I need to research this some more, but there is a background during the massive Vietnam War of certain helicopters in vast quantities being shot down to the level of 10,000. Said failure of no real consequence to those being enriched by that particular group of shoddy helicopters. Know what I mean? Perhaps history's many millions of examples of leaders deliberately endangering their own citizens for power and money won't truly upset you until reminded that the result of such vicious venality was many hundreds of millions of innocent men, women, and children murdered, also ruining the lives of billions of grieving survivors. The last century and next decades featuring an exponential, likely terminal acceleration of death and misery. Citizens' response to corruption has always been to whine mildly and then ignore it. Well, at 5 minutes to midnight, you and I could wander, bleat, and sleep like standard sheep, or get and stay infuriated and fight for hard new laws until we get them.